If it doesn't hurt, you're really not gonna love it for the longest time. I was also consulting watch brands. My last client, that past life of mine, was Journe. They all have a very strong DNA, but one thing that they will never be able to add to this is that it's trickle down design or a copy of something else.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wrist Enthusiast Radio. I'm Craig. I'm here with Derek, Ben, and Carlos Ramirez of MEC Watches, who's going to talk about MEC Watches and his collecting journey and journey to creating the brand. How is everyone doing?
Doing great.
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Hang on. So I guess before we get into MEC and everything MEC, let's talk about what's on our wrist. So Carlos, as the guest of honor, go first. What are you wearing?
Well,
I have an idea.
I think so. Obviously, wearing the MEC one. I have here something interesting because it's the first time that I'm double wristing. So here we have my prototype, which is the watch that I've been wearing for, I don't know, since the last 2 years. It's got gone through the ringer. And then on this side is actually a production version of the MEC one. So you guys are going to definitely see the difference between them two. I think that it was very cool.
One's New York time and one's Miami time.
Exactly. Which is the same.
Because he needs that.
Same time, right? Someone's going to be in the comments being like, those are the same times, dumb.
Exactly.
Could you pass them around so we can
Absolutely,
take a look?
of course. It will be my pleasure.
I'm sure we're gonna get into it and really ask you a bunch of questions, so we'll save that till after. But I like the strap choices you put on both of them. They look very nice.
These are actually the two straps that the watch comes with.
It comes with two.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Look at that.
Right?
Look at that.
Dang, this is nice. This is like an ostrich strap.
Correct. So this one is a saddle color ostrich. This one actually comes with a proper production buckle. And that one is a gray suede, strap. That one also has a placeholder, prototype buckle. But the interesting thing is that if you see all the details, for example, at the very end of the strap, you have the coloration of the stitching. It's exactly the same color as the Luminova for the watch, because we use a very specific Luminova that I wanted to be a little bit different. The buckle, very, in same line with the design of Art Deco, for the entire DNA of the brand. Yeah. So very purposeful made.
They're all, quick release too.
Yes.
It's funny. I was watching, I'm sure if anybody's on social media, you probably saw it. Ben Clymer went through his 5 things that make him mad about modern watchmaking. Yes. One of the things he did not include were quick release straps, right? Which I think is an underappreciated thing. And I think,
so he likes quick release is what.
No, he didn't even mention it.
He didn't mention it as like a, it's like, oh, you have a bracelet, but you don't have a micro adjust, that kind of thing. Okay, yeah. But he didn't include, everyone in comments was like, what about quick release straps? Yeah. Every watch should have these at this point. And
I agree. Especially for us, it would have been very awkward not to give it a quick release, given that we're giving the watch with 2 straps, right? So it makes it easier.
Which is not the most important part about the watch, but I just know.
but for everyday watch collector, you kind of like that because you have the opportunity of being creative with it. The only thing that I regret now, piggybacking on that idea, is that the buckle doesn't have quick release. And that's something that I haven't seen a lot recently. I don't think that a lot of people do that.
You can put the buckle on a different strap if you want to.
Yeah, correct. So
you just don't want to send people 2 buckles.
No. Yeah. Because that's a slippery slope. Then you need to send them buckles every time that they get a new strap.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the few things that I wish that I could R&D, but I think that it's too much time and money and headache to develop something that is going to be so minimally, you know.
I guess there's a few ways you could do it. One, the easiest way is obviously adding a quick release spring bar at the tip of the strap. The other way that offers a little more convenience is just putting drilled holes on the clasp itself, so at least it's easy.
Yeah.
And then a brand like Jaeger-LeCoultre, they actually have a folding buckle that allows you just push the clasp in and then you can pull it out and switch straps. Yeah. So their version is built into their buckle, which is also an easy way. But I can imagine it's a lot of work to do that little groove to make it work.
Yeah,
It's like,
imagine doing that with a pin buckle.
Yeah.
Maybe if I do that with a clasp, like
Yeah.
kind of make
Yeah.
more sense. But with a pin buckle, kind of complicated.
Yeah, I'd be worried with like a spring, like that could get like loose and then the whole watch falls off.
And besides that, which that's a very good point, is on the lock side, this part of the watch doesn't have the same type of touch points on the skin
Yeah.
that the buckle has. So imagine having that little protrusion
Yeah.
on the
Man.
buckle. So it's complicated, man. You need to think about so many things at the same time when you're developing something like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thank
wearing
you.
it.
We'll
We're
talk
going to
more.
ask you a ton more questions about
Yep.
that in a moment.
I'm gonna go to Derek now because that white dial.
Oh man,
is
you already
flashing in the
spoiled
face.
it.
And I mean, you've been talking about wanting this watch for, I think,
Pretty much a year.
since you started on the podcast, if not
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And you finally have it.
Manifest. No, I'm just kidding.
It can happen for you too. If
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, so I'm wearing the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch white dial, and I will mention I'm wearing it on a deluxe strap since they're the sponsor of our video. I got this really cool pattern in
It looks
gray,
sick.
like storm gray.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I've been talking about this watch. I don't want to like repeat why I like it because I've said it like 1,000 times in every short, and I feel like it's just like overplayed now. It's just one of those watches like everyone says you should have in your collection at some point, like a Speedmaster. I like the white dial because it's not limited, first of all. I like that it's not one of the many iterations. It's just a standard production white dial with red pop-up text. What I like about it, the easiest connection is they had a Diver 300 white dial, like the great white that people call it. I've always loved that watch, but I always felt like it wore a little big. Sure, this is also 42, but you guys know I'm a chronograph person, so
yeah.
I would do it
So-
in that kind of colorway.
So, question for you: what is the Wrist Enthusiast Radio co-host discount on one of these?
Nothing.
Co-host discount. Oh, so you're asking for yourself. There's actually no discount. It's so hard to get right now.
It's free. That's what it is.
It's free. Yeah, it's free. Yeah, you guys all get to wear it for a period of time while we're in this room. That's the
30
discount.
seconds. Well, Derek
Yeah.
talks about it.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
I want to hear Ben's take because I know he was excited about this.
No, I put this, I think that's my watch of the year last year in a
Yeah.
2024 video, like end of the year. And originally when it came out, I was like the one person that was like, they had white dial Speedmasters. I don't know what the big deal is. And since I've seen it, more pictures, and that was actually my first time seeing it in person.
Really? This is the first time?
First time seeing it in person. Yeah. I am blown. I love it. Like I want it, which happens a lot to me.
You want that co-host discount also?
I want that co-host discount.
We're gonna work on Derek, and
We'll work.
by the end of this has been a very long season.
I don't think we ever took a break.
Yeah, we never took a break, so I don't know if we just turn everything into one whole season. But by the end of the season, we're gonna get that
It's just a good look. And you were speaking at the Great White Seamaster. It was my first big watch I bought, and I sold it, pretty immediately.
But it left
Got
an
the
impression
call.
on you.
Left an impression. I think about it a lot because I'm like, that watch was so comfortable. I was on a rubber strap, which I love. But that is, especially I'm not joking. I'm not just saying this because the sponsor, like on that strap is.
Yeah, it's really nice, and it's like a gray, but it's like there's some stuff going on
Derek
there.
loves
So
his
it's
gray
not
strap.
I love my gray
like a
straps.
typical Derek gray. There's some
I just like how modern it looks. Like, I don't want it to look vintage or anything like that. Like, I want to be the one to make it look vintage over time.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It's just so clean and legible. And, Carlos would know because we're both new fathers. But like, one of the things for babies,
I didn't know that. Congrats.
we talk off camera about like how much sleep you get. And it's always a conversation. But one of the things is like newborn babies, they have to have high contrast images. So I got so used to looking at high contrast stuff that I really like. The IWC I brought last time, the Mark 15, is also high contrast. This is high contrast. So I'm like, I think I just like high contrast things now because I've been training my eyes as well. But yeah.
Very nice.
That's a beautiful watch.
Yeah.
First time that I saw it, I was in Tokyo in Ginza, and a friend of mine wanted to buy it. We went to the Swatch group actually has a whole building in the middle of Ginza.
The Nicholas Hyatt building.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then depending on the brand, they have a different elevator that is in the middle of the hallway when you enter. It's the weirdest stuff, but it's very cool. So we took the elevator to Omega, and he was asking for this watch. And these people said, we haven't seen one in a while, but maybe we can make something for you, but you need to make a decision right now. And I'm like, I started, nothing against Omega, but I started looking around like, is this Patek? Is this Rolex? Like, where am I right now? And, that's a testament that the watch is actually that good. People are really looking for it. And the strap is also killer. My regards to Ken. Him and his wife are absolutely amazing. They treated me so well in Singapore. They're fantastic, and they do an amazing product. So props to them too.
Okay. Thanks for letting me share.
Congratulations. I'll go next because
go for it.
Ben kind of has two. I'm going to make you
Well, I'll
pull
talk about both.
I'll pull. You're pull out the second. He's Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah. I am not.
So I just got this in for review. The Freak One Navy. I've seen them at events and stuff like that, and Watches and Wonders, but I've never had one for a long period of time. It's a cool watch. It's very unique and how it tells time, how you wind it. You change the time. Have you seen these before?
No, I haven't.
You change the time by lifting up this flap here and then rotating the whole entire movement.
Oh.
And then the movement, rotates instead of the hands rotating. So, the entire movement.
Or the hands.
Are the hands.
Yeah.
So it's cool. They're not cheap. This one is 66,000, I think. But I like that they're doing something, first of all, completely modern when everyone's doing kind of vintage-esque, and that they're, these are incredibly sporty and out there watches, and, it's, I think, DLC titanium with forged carbon bezel.
So there's no crown, and the crown is all operated by the bezel.
Yeah.
So you wind.
Yeah.
High.
And I think you wind it by winding the case back, which I don't know if I got a good enough grip to be able to do.
Oh, yeah. It says to wind. Turn it
this way.
Oh, I'm winding it. Whoa, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I've seen these from afar on the wrists of many people. Actually, Ken from Deluxe is one of the ones who has it.
If I had it for longer, I would have made Ken send me a Deluxe, because I always see him wearing one of a Freak with a Deluxe strap on it. So yeah, it's a really cool watch.
Damn,
what you were saying, they're going into that more modern look, and everyone's going vintage. Same thing with your brand as well. I think that the loud luxury.
Yeah,
I've been saying it for a while, but it's so cool.
But it's also you're a big Norqain fan. Yeah. Obviously they're totally different price points, but they have some similar vibes.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that this is one of those testaments on the fact that when a company can go fully independent, like how Ulysse Nardin and then obviously within the same group, Perigo did, some people make it. This is a testament to people that actually are able to now instill the whole idea of design and developing a watch. So this is great. I mean, they took a classic. The first Freak is literally a freak of a watch, and now they have modernized it. This is beautiful. This is very, very cool.
I have one funny thing to share. So I was doing a lot of research. It's actually related to what we're talking about. But have you guys heard the Ulysse Nardin song?
No.
Are you going to play
I'm just going to play the intro because I don't want to get copyright strike for the whole channel. But I'm just going to play it loud, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it.
Who is this? A rap?
Clearly.
Is it a French rap?
All right, that's all I'm gonna play.
That's good.
But that's the cover, Ulysse Nardin.
By Maze Y?
Massive.
No way. Was it made for UN?
It's gotta be because there's a photo of a UN and the whole name is Ulysse Nardin.
Yeah, you're gonna expect that.
And it's actually mad hype. Imagine working out to that song.
Yeah. I'm gonna start working out to the Ulysse Nardin song.
Well, that's the first thing I thought of. But
this is a Ben watch. This is very.
I'm blown away by this because I never seen one in person, and I've always wanted to. I've seen so many people talk about it. I didn't know about the time changing by the crown and also the case, what's it called? The bezel and the case back.
Yeah.
Super cool. I'm really impressed.
Have you ever thought about carrying UN in the.
This is the first time I thought about it now. But how much does this go for?
This one, so this is one of the more affordable. I think the Freak S is more expensive.
The Freak X Ops is less. It's like 30 something.
And then the Freak S is more, I think. It's like over 90 or 100.
I'm no expert.
Okay, so these are in the...
This is 66 something change.
Okay.
It's the bigger size. You might like this. There's a smaller size one that you don't change. It's called the Freak X Op. Well,
that
Freak
has
X
a crown.
Has a crown though. But it's in the 30s. So it's cheaper than that. I love that one. The Freak X Ops comes on a Velcro strap. I'm like obsessed with it.
What am I going to do with the crown?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a deal breaker for me at all. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
That's kind of cool the way that they did this. Okay, Ben. Ben has 2 watches. And
I have 2. So the one I'm wearing, because it was sized for me, it still has stickers on it.
Did they size it for you, or did they just have to be your size?
This was probably a sample, and they were like, someone
kept the links.
Yeah.
Just holding it.
So
you don't size watches when you get them?
Well, I literally just got yesterday, and I was like, I was going to wear something else. I'm like, let me see if they're sized. The pink one was. So this is the Tudor Chrono Inter Miami pink, which is the original. And then this is like the one that I feel like nobody has seen in person yet, which is the flamingo blue.
Flamingo blue.
I feel like if you say Tiffany, they're going to get so mad.
I almost said disco blue too.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more like vivid than like Tiffany blue.
Very vivid, very loud. These are like,
this is a heavy watch.
Yeah.
These are like,
Blackback chronos are heavy.
Everyone asked about them all the time. Be like, how do you get a pink? How do you get the flamingo blue? I'm actually right now leaning towards the pink. I thought I would lean towards that, but I just think that flamingo blue, which I do like, is not quite the look I'm looking for. I like the pink, but they're both sick.
This
they're both
pink,
very
actually,
cool.
So what is this pink called? Miami pink?
It's just called pink.
Oh, it looks like bubble gum.
They couldn't use flamingo because they already used the flamingo blue. They were not going to be like, oh, this is the flamingo.
Flamingo pink.
You know?
Well, the pink came first, so they could have.
Yeah. And then that one's Inter Miami. So that's David Beckham's soccer football team in Miami. Messi plays for them. Journe
is actually a flamingo.
Oh, is it? I didn't even realize that. Oh, there you go. And then this one's flamingo blue, but this is technically not Inter Miami FC or Inter Miami. It's all
interesting.
Called. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now that I'm holding the flamingo blue up close, I think I do like the pink better too. There's just something about this color that's like a little too much blue for me.
You would get more, it's funny, I also thought you would get more looks with that. I think wearing that, you'd get a lot more like, what are you wearing?
Yeah, because this is more subdued pink, and that one's like a very, like, bright color.
For sure.
I think that might sell better because it's not pink. Some people are comfortable wearing pink, which I think is silly. But then also, that's like that, like, aqua, like you were saying, blue.
You know that this thing is on your wrist when you're wearing this.
Oh, it's heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah, it's got some weight.
It's Rolex weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still can't get over having to unscrew.
Well, it's heavier than like my Daytona.
Yeah. Don't screw the pushers. That was one of the things in Ben Clymer's thing.
Yeah.
Don't screw the pushers?
He said he hates the screw down pushes.
I do too, because
it's annoying.
When you need to time something fast, that means you have to have it unscrewed the whole time, but then it's not like water resistant.
Yeah.
But
then who cares? Just don't make it water resistant.
Derek's the only one that actually uses his chronograph.
I use mine too, to be fair. It's me and Derek. Oh,
so,
you use it? Yes.
Trying to be a bully here.
Not to throw you on
How the turntables.
I'll take it. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Derek, just that people haven't really gone into the, the work or the homework to change that system or that mechanism. For example, Shisha used to have the compressor, the master compressor crown.
Right.
I think that is absolutely amazing because it's just half of a turn.
Yeah.
Good to go, right? And they look very nice. And they decided to kill them. They don't kill them anymore. Hopefully they bring it back. But it's about innovation. I think that people need to innovate more.
Do you know Barrel Hand? So they're creating, we had, Carell and
pre-Derek.
Post, then pre-Derek. So it was a very short period of time when he could have come on. But they're creating a watch that's supposed to like go into space and be like the perfect space watch. But like for doing anything. And you can actually set the time underwater.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. You can, like, he went underwater and like showed setting the time, like pulling out the crown and setting the time.
And which is pretty cool. And that's the part that I love the most is people innovating, especially, even more so for ourselves in this side of the pond because he's American. So I'm very glad that he did that.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. I wouldn't dare to do that because that will resolve only if the gaskets are, oil and new.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't dare to do that when those gaskets are a little bit dry, but I think it's pretty cool, the innovation and the idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's get into you, Carlos, and MEC Watches. I'm going to let Derek kind of lead this conversation a little bit more because Derek, I think, knows Carlos the most and can kind of...
You both have young children.
We both have children.
Yeah.
They're just going to talk about parenting for the next half an hour.
I'm going to just move your mic up real quick.
Sure. There you go.
Close to your mouth.
There
Okay.
you go.
Okay.
So, Carlos, where should we start? Why don't you tell us about your collecting journey, and we'll kind of lead that into your, what you're doing now with MEC Watches, like
Sure.
how you're using all the experience from buying, collecting watches over the years, what you were doing before. I think people would be really interested to hear your story.
Absolutely. So I started very early on. I don't come from, like many other people, they do come from families that are collectors. My family my parents were appreciators of beautiful things. They mostly collect art and furniture. They really like this sort of deal, but it was never truly watches. But I was exposed to beautiful things. My father used to have a few dates, Rolex and, Mercedes SL back in the day when they called the shark head. And I really enjoy that kind of like marked myself into a style and design. And I started collecting, my first watch was like a fashion watch, Fossil watch. And, surely, but, within time, I started collecting some other watches. I started going for the typical G-Shock when I was in middle school and, Tag Heuer, the whole gamut from very, let's say entry price point until I started, making my own money. And I'm like, I might do this. And every time that I went a step above, it kind of hurt, but I strongly believe, I don't know what you guys think, but when you're going to get into a different watch, if it doesn't hurt, you're really not going to love it for the longest time. And that has been my experience, for different reasons, right? So I jumped from Baume & Mercier, and then I went to Panerai, and then I went to Celeste, all the way up to start collecting independents. And every time that I went up, on the list, let's say price point or different type of brand, I started learning a little bit more about what makes it special and why these people are charging this amount of money. So the value for me was, now I understand the level of decoration. I understand why this watch is 10 times more expensive is because, the weight and when you manipulate it, etc. And that also allowed me to be more critical on the things that I didn't like. I don't like this watch. Why? It's not just because I don't like the design. That might be the case, but I also started manipulating them. And that gave me a bit better understanding of what people do. And sometimes understanding that a product, I might not like it because of how it looks, but it's a fantastic watch, right? And vice versa. It might look absolutely amazing and it's a crappy movement internally, but it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own liking to things. So by the time that I got to the point that I said to myself, I think that I have achieved that level of, Rubicon and top echelon of collecting watches. I started being, okay, I need something more. What's next after this? During that period of time, I was also consulting watch brands. So my last client, that past life of mine, was FP Journe. They were a client of mine, and I was obsessed with what Journe was doing. And one of the things that I had the opportunity, the chance of having a very important, intimate conversation with Francois Paul when I met him a few times. And I did ask him, like, what are your thoughts about someone that wants to start their own brand? He laughed, and
He laughed.
because I'm assuming that he hears this all the time.
I'm sure.
But then after having a long conversation, he said, I think that you should do it because it's something that is bugging you and it's something that you want to bring something a little bit different to the table. And I didn't make any decision until pandemic hit. I was like every one of us, prisoner in my own home. And I decided to do it February of 2020. So I did a little bit of a design, with one of my business partners, Eric, shout out to him. And, we put what pretty much is the MEC one today in a piece of paper. And then he helped me to digitalize from the very get-go, I wanted to do a jump hour. And the reason is because my wife was asking me the other day is number one, because I really wanted a jump hour. And the main reason that I couldn't get one is because every single jump hour, the maximum that you can find them was 36 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
There were not bigger sizes than that.
Unless you get the space one, which is like.
Correct. And then you have, two out there type of design.
Yeah.
And maybe some others that didn't really call me. And I said, okay, I think that's one very solid reason on why I want to create this watch, because the watch that I wanted to create, it was a watch for myself and for my, group of 3 people that also wanted to get a watch. So the idea never came about of let's actually create a brand. It's just, let's do a watch that we like, that we want to wear. And that's it. Right. Mm-hmm. Because no one is offering this. And then the idea took, wings of its own and started flying out. And they're, but let's not use a shelf movement. Let's create something. Mm-hmm. Because evidently, if we're going to use that, it's going to have a module. It's going to be very thick, et cetera, et cetera. And we started dialing on that. What we didn't know is that we were shooting ourselves in the foot because then the bills started racking up, right? Yeah. Developing a watch is definitely not for the faint of heart. This is extremely expensive. It takes a lot of time. You need to be extremely sure about what is it that you want to do, why, with whom, having the connections, having the providers, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the beginning of it all. But thanks to the long experience that I have collecting watches, not just on the technical side, by the way, I was also complaining about the experience of buying a watch, because it's very different if you come, for example, to Derek's store. He's going to treat you. He's going to explain to you what is it that, you might like better depending on your lifestyle. That is cool. That is something that you don't get everywhere. But if you go directly to the brand, the experience might not be the same. And that's something that frustrated me, especially with certain of these brands that we have been mentioning before, that the experience has been, becoming less and less and less interesting for everybody. You feel that you're asking for a handout, like you're asking for a piece of stale bread. They shoo you away. I hate that stuff. And I said, okay, if I want to make a watch and if I want to change the way that we do the watch, everything in house, with a completely new design. Actually, this watch doesn't even have, for me at least, a lot of inspiration in watches. The main inspiration comes from architecture. And that's one of the main reasons why the watch and the DNA of the brand, because you guys will see that with the new watches that we're going to be unveiling, hopefully by the end of the year, that it will expand the collection. They all have a very strong DNA, but it's clearly that they don't look like anything else in the market. And that's something that I'm very proud of. So love it, hate it. Is it for you? It's not for you. But one thing that they will never be able to add to this is that is trickle down design or it's just, a copy of something else. And that's something that I'm very proud of.
The first thing when you first showed me the MEC watch, I think that MEC 1, I think that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was at the old store, and I think it was still in prototype then. I remember you were showing me the different kinds of loom that you were playing around with. And then I was like most impressed because you were telling me how you can pretty much use any color loom that you want. Right. And the process of doing that on the minute hand for the jump hour, plus having it illuminate behind where the actual jump hour numeral is. I can't imagine all of the headaches. And like you mentioned, the bills started racking because you started finding new problems that you put yourself into that you just had to keep solving over time.
Yeah, that's actually a very funny thing that you mentioned, because you already have something that the entire attention on how do you read time in a jump hour is very distilled into only having the digital time, hour, and then the minutes, depending on how people do it. Some people do it completely freely the way that I do it. Some other people tend to go retrograde. Definitely not my favorite. But the point is you don't have the two hands and the rest of the real estate. That's number one. The reason why I decided to make it completely open work is because you have movement. Jump hours tend to be boring because there's nothing going on, right? You don't have seconds. Majority of people take the seconds away. I said, okay, let's have running seconds. Then you have could be a very beautiful dial. You can put a stone dial, whatever it is, but then there's no dynamism. If it could be a more dress oriented piece, but I wanted to have a watch that I could wear every single day. So I think that with the concept of the open work that we did on MEC One, it's a watch that you will never get bored of looking at. But at the same time, that also presents another issue, legibility. If you have a lot of things to look at, how are you going to, in a very quick glance, check out the time? And immediately you realize, oh, this is actually pretty easy to read. And the reason is because we put the Pocket Luminova below the hour disc. And that's the only reason why it creates that level of, legibility into it. So yeah, it's just, pretty cool. Not to, sound my own trumpet, but definitely I think that we were able to develop the idea of legibility versus, having something visually, exciting.
Yeah. We were talking about this before and I agree. Very unique design, unlike really anything. The only thing, and it's funny that you talked about how you had, a relationship, and worked with FP Journe. The only watch that I see any similarities before are the Vagabondage series, which they had like a jump out. I think the first one was a jump hour, and then the second one was had added jump minutes, and the third one I think added jump seconds.
Correct.
Which, I mean, like, those watches are technical achievements, and, I think the Vagabondage 3 has to be over $1 million. But when I first saw that, I was like, that's similar to Vagabondage 3, but maybe one day I could afford one of these. What are the price points on your watches?
No, it's
and how many are you making?
Very astute that pointed out, because we actually, the initial R&D team that helped us to develop the watch, it was because Francois Paul himself gave us the green light to work with his R&D team. So this has a FP Journe DNA, and obviously the Vagabondage line, especially Vagabondage 1, is one of my absolute favorite watches design wise that he makes, and it had a lot to do with that, because it was one of the only watches that I actually love, but impossible to find one because already sold out, etc. And if you wanted to get one, you need to have deep pockets. And then I said, okay, you know what? Let me invest some money instead of buying the watch already been made, right? And that's another very important point. I made the decision, conscious decision, to sell the watch at a price point where we don't have big margins of return. So the price of this is 23,000 Swiss francs, which is 25 and change USD. Even if we put it on the top, let's say 26,000 is a fraction of what a watch with this level of craftsmanship, decoration, technicality, design, and actually the actual complication of jump hour will cost you if the name of the dial will be any other thing, right? Doesn't mean that it shouldn't cost more in the future, and it will, but that was my introduction to the market. I have paid 0 in marketing, 0 in PR, 0 in advertising. Everything has come very organically because people like the watch. They want to know more about it. And because we are, technically one of the very first fully in-house independent brands in the US, from the US. And my idea in the future is to be able to build everything in US soil. So hopefully within the next 3 years, we're going to be able to do a percentage of it. If we make 20, 30%, that will be a big achievement. And then if we make half of the watch, etc., that will take time, that will take money, that will take a lot of effort, because my goal is to end up, devising or creating a full-fledged manufacturing facility for microengineering needs, that could do watchmaking amongst many other things, but taking a little bit on the steps that someone like Romain Gauthier decided to do before he got into watches, because the guy is not a watchmaker. He's an industrial, aerospace engineer. And that was what he was doing his, factory, manufacturing facility. And then all of a sudden he's like, wait a second, I can actually make watches. I like it. I have a very different, language of design, which I really like, by the way. And he does some amazing watches, right? So for me, it's going to be the challenge of creating some sort of Valcher or ETA or Celita here in America, and not just to make our own movements and our own parts, but to be able to also support a lot of independent watchmakers that they want to get into this quote unquote gold rush in America, for reviving the concept of watchmaking in America.
Like American watchmaking.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
it
Which
used
we
to be so
used to
big.
have.
Yeah.
Hamilton, Boulevard, yeah.
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts in a town called Weston, and like a town over is Waltham, Massachusetts.
There you go.
And Waltham was, huge, and I think the founder of IWC was with Waltham before he.
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so-
correct. And actually, Waltham was the top echelon of watchmaking in the States, because if you see anything made by Waltham from the 1920s, they're pocket watches.
Mhm.
We actually used to have, this is something that not a lot of people know, a very specific style of decoration for the movements that is very American, and people don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that hopefully within the future iterations of our watches, we're going to start bringing back.
Can you describe what that kind of decoration looks like? American.
Yeah, I think that most likely you're going to be able to help with visual aids while we're talking about it, but is instead of the Côte de Genève, the
Genève.
waves of Geneva, right?
Yeah.
We have a very specific striation or stripes that are more American. They don't have a fancy name, right? But it's very stereotypical of 1910s and 1920s watchmaking. And it's absolutely cool, beautiful, and different.
One of the cooler places, speaking of that, is in just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. There's the Watch and Clock Museum, and you can go if you're in that area. It's very cool. Some people find it very boring. I found it cool. They have pocket watches from the 1900s all the way up, and all different kinds of watches. Grandfather clocks from Swiss manufacturers and American manufacturers. The whole 9 yards. You could see the difference and the similarities. It's very, 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 very cool. But that just reminded me of like
and
Hamilton.
if you guys are in the area, also go and knock the door at RGM, right? Because he actually creates the Pennsylvania tourbillon that is actually very cool. I think that is, very innovative. It's very cool what he's doing. Shame that he can only produce so little of those numbers of watches.
Right.
But we have very cool things happening in America. I just wish, and at least I'm trying to do my own part to bring that in full force.
So is your goal kind of, like, for example, like Parmigiani?
Yes.
They sell their own watches, and then, is it Vaucher? That's their, like, movement manufacturer. They make movements for other people. So is that the kind of goal? Like, you have MEC and you produce your own watches, but then you also produce, like, either stock or customized movements for other brands?
That's the main idea. Because I think for two reasons. Number one, it will make our life easier. It will make R&D. Right now, if you guys take a look at, some information online, most brands, small or large, in Switzerland take between 5 to 8 years to develop a new watch, because they need to do a lot of R&D, testing, prototyping, etc. So the fact that we did that in a fraction of that time, a full in-house jump hour, which is not an easy complication to do, in about 3 years. And then all of a sudden, after 4 years, started to bring it out into the market, was a big, a big thing for us to do. I want to change that. I want to be even better. So if we had our manufacturing facilities here in the States, we had our R&D team, and we had our CNC machinists, etc., that could help me to develop a brand new caliber within 6 months.
Right.
And then to prototype it and have a new watch maybe every year and a half. That's a big innovation for our community. I think that concept of, you don't need to cut corners. You can, but be more efficient working. Not to throw any wrenches to the Swiss. I love you guys. I depend on you for now. But the way that they work is very different on the mentality, how we work in America. And I want to bring that. I want to be able to be fast, efficient, at the same time to make a great product that we feel proud of, that, as much as we can make it here in the
Innovative.
US. Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's my one request of you if you get this project off the ground.
Of course.
Make an off-the-shelf square or rectangular movement because I don't think anyone does it. There's no like Sellita or Etta
Off the shelf
off the shelf that you can
for jumping
Just
out.
buy
No, just like
mechanical.
like a mechanical square rectangular movement.
There's one the Celeste makes is a little bit of a tunnel shape.
He will know.
But
Yeah.
I mean automatic, not
For sure.
not-
Automatic, no.
not manual, not
Yeah. That
Yeah.
one is manual. Why?
I mean, minute repeater. I mean, we're gonna keep adding. Yeah.
No, automatic.
I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know that too. Yeah.
But because for Ren, we're working on something that's gonna take on more of a a rectangular shape, and I'm like, if I want to display the movement, I want it not to be just like a big circle in this, and it's like going through how to do that. If you have a manual wind, you can take bridges out and add them in. But when you have the rotor, it's sitting there.
Correct.
There's also not any American or Swiss, off the shelf micro rotors that you can really buy. There's Chinese, but not Swiss. There's just like a huge lack, even in Switzerland, of some of these things that these smaller brands, I think, would really be interested in
For sure.
using.
I mean, in the ones that are available, because I could point you out to some of them, it's also a little bit inaccessible. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you guys, I really don't wish this on anybody that is getting into the game because for me it was difficult. I mean, just in this conversation, I can tell you guys, before our current product manager, I hired 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
The first one took 5K, disappeared. The other one
Wow.
took 15K, disappeared. And these people were super highly vetted. They come from working for big firms, big companies, and it doesn't really matter. And that's something that I don't wish on anybody, that I'm pretty sure that every single person that is trying to do a watch in America has to go through.
Yeah.
Dealing with that, dealing with customs, dealing with shipping.
Yeah.
We were waiting for parts because we do entirely our decoration, regulation, and quality control in America, in the US. We have our little atelier or workshop in South Carolina, Lexington, and we waited for about 2 months in order for custom to release about
Oh
3
my
packages, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
so frustrating too.
Yeah.
imagine that. And then that's not the worst. The worst is that number one, we're waiting for those parts to assemble the watches and start delivering our watches. Once the parts came, we realized that 80% of the parts were not good. Were in not good condition,
Yeah.
not good shape. We needed to send them back. So those are the type of things that put me in a rough spot because I like to be clear and punctual with our clients, with our collectors. Listen, I told you April, I will deliver you your watch in April. Thank God our collectors have been nothing but wonderful.
Yeah.
They understand these struggles. They understand what's going on. So sometimes it take a little bit longer and they say, don't worry, take your time. But I don't want to be in that spot. So that's another big reason why I'm pushing for this.
With Ren, I've been dealing with the same thing, but we're in like a completely different price point. We're under 1,000, and people in the under $1,000 price point are a little less, I feel like, forgiving.
Yes.
They want things quicker. And so, like, for example, we had a bunch of watches come that needed, the bezels on the dive watches, they were like too springy. Like, then I was like, I'm not sending these out. Like, you can have a little bit of spring, like even Rolex as well, a little bit of spring in the bezels, but these were like too clicky. And so I sent 25 of them back to get replacement bezels. And when I get them back, 22 are great. 3 of them have the wrong bezel on it.
There you go.
Oh my god.
And I think what happened was, I guess there was a 4th that the bezel was broken. We have sapphire bezels on these watches. I think what happened, so the first model had a black bezel with like vintage lume, and the second model had a navy bezel with white lume. And I think what happened was our third model goes back to the original bezel. I think they broke them, put the black bezels on, or like maybe they won't notice, and send them to me.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
and it's
I'm
just
not
like-
surprised. To be honest, you tell me all this, I'm not surprised.
And I'm telling people because I'm looking at shipping that I'm getting these watches in. Oh, I'm going to be able to ship it on this day. And then I have to be like, okay, I can't ship it to you now. But
it's a struggle, man.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. So that's precisely why I want to change that, hopefully. And to your question, yeah, besides us having some shelf movements that we want to create, we're also, another goal of mine is to be able to support people that want to get into the industry. So let's say that you have an idea, you want to create something. We're going to have an R&D team that will help you to develop that idea into a movement, into a full-fledged watch, depending on the price point, of course. But that's also one of the things that I want to do, is to be able to be that, force for good in order to create more American watch brands.
I want to pull it back a little bit. Did you mention the name behind MEC Watches yet? Like how the name came about to be?
No, not really. We wanted to work with maybe our initials from the founders, etc. But after going back and forth out of many things that it didn't work, I decided to go, guys, why don't we figure it out that this is a microengineering effort? So microengineering company, let's go MEC. And that's how MEC or MEC is, came about. And it works for everything that we're trying to do, not just the watches, but the manufacturing facility and our idea to make this into a reality, because that's what we're doing. This is a feat of very small part engineering. And then you mix that with art, which is that design part of your creation. And I think that, again, same thing that we were talking off camera. Some people might like it, some people might not, but this is what, we idealized, we liked, we put it on the dial, and we're getting known for. So
better to have a strong reaction than no reaction.
I agree.
Even if it's a negative one.
I agree with that. Let people talk good about you, but let them talk. For people not to talk about you. How many
of the first series are you or did you make?
So for the subscription, we made only 50 watches. And subscription meaning that every single new model that we are going to be putting out, they will be on stainless steel. They're not going to be in precious metal. And they're going to be on that entry, quote unquote, price point, not doing a lot of margins, because what my intention has always been is our marketing and advertising arm of things, our efforts is going to be just put the watches on the right wrist. And price point shouldn't be, one of the hurdles for people. So having that into consideration, we did 50 of these, and that's it. That's the other thing, a little bit of the page of one of my mentors from Sopol that he did is, once you do a run and you finalize that run, you don't repeat that run ever again. So the MEC one will only exist in this form of stainless steel and German silver movement for the subscription. After this, the regular production that potentially we're going to be unveiling very soon, the design, because we had a little revamp. Also, the caliber is going to be only in precious metal. And those are going to be producing 25 pieces a year. So our production will be small. Obviously, the price point will change. But initially, we only make 50 of these, and they are pretty much sold out already.
And they've all been delivered at this
point? No, we have delivered already 24 watches. Okay. So almost half of the production, yes. Because I do hand delivery as well. So that also takes time, flying around. For some reason, I end up having clients and collectors in Middle East. So I need to be flying in March to Dubai, Abu Dhabi to deliver these watches. So it's a pretty cool experience, because what I'm trying is also bring back that level of craftsmanship, the artisan type of experience of sitting down with them, present the watch, tell them about the watch, etc. Each one of them are numbered. And even the way that we did the number of the watches, you guys are going to be able to see the images. It's inside the caliber.
Yeah.
So we put a little plate. It's not on the bezel, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not on the case back. So that takes time. And I think that is definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Because these people have this sense of special occasion, special watch that you're going to be wearing. They invested into this maybe 2 years ago, some of them a few months ago. But the important thing is that I know every single one of them.
Yeah. So
by first name.
So if I buy one,
yes,
you're willing to come all the way out to New Jersey to deliver.
Something that we need to
I'll
talk
have
about. We'll see.
What's it called?
He's like, we'll be at Starbucks in Manhattan. He's like, I'll go to the Middle East, I'll go to Japan,
but I will
not go to New Jersey.
Whatever I do. Yeah. No, that whole experience of like hand delivering your watch to you from the founder, the creator, that's something that reminds me of what Jean-Claude Biver used to do. I think for Blancpain, there was like years ago, if you bought a certain threshold, he would like invite you to Switzerland. I might be wrong. There's some thing he would do, like invite you to a lunch, and you get to meet and eat with the people who made your watch, which I think is really missing from today, because everything is about like, you know, it's some brands are more transactional. It's just that you bought it, and you know, that's it.
Well, it's actually something that a lot of you three all get to experience, whether it's Ren or in the store. You get to see the experience of me actually buying your watch and getting it for the first time when they're buying it. It's like so cool. Something that I don't get to. I get to see people happy when they do buy stuff, but I can imagine it's such a fulfilling thing for any of you.
When I was in Japan for a Grand Seiko tour, we were having a meeting with some of the designers, and I walk in and they gave me a tentograph to wear for the week. And one of the designers comes in and goes, "Nice watch." And like the head of PR comes over to me and whispers, "He designed it."
Oh no.
That was like kind of cool, like having a designer
cool. That's very cool.
there to, you know.
It definitely elevates the experience, right?
Yeah. And you get a nice trip out of it.
Correct. Absolutely. For example, now that you mentioned, the first delivery of the watches was actually in New York.
Okay.
So some of the folks that were not in New York, but because we did it not in the sense of regional delivery, but who came first on the list. So the very first 10 collectors of the brand, we invited them for a full dinner and celebration the day before we did the official launch of the brand.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Like everyone had some wine that I brought from my brand in Argentina. And it's a very personal type of interaction, because you get to explain everyone their watch. They put it on, they take their pictures. We had a great time, and immediately showcase the second watch, which, the design of the MEC 2 is already, out there, a little sketch, and everyone was so, enamored by the idea and so emotional about receiving their watch after so long and seeing it being so cool that they immediately sign up for the second watch.
Wow.
So even then, after 2 weeks of that, we already have 15 out of 30 people that, because for MEC 2, instead of 50, we're going to do 30. So there are some people that are going to be left out. And half of the production was already spoke for.
Wow.
And right now it's completely fully subscribed. It's oversubscribed, actually.
Yeah.
300 people in waiting list for that watch.
Wow.
It's going to be our first travel time, but it's pretty cool. And you get to talk about this type of thing, that just showcasing something on social media is a big reveal of the next new watch for these people that are trusting you more than just the brand. Yeah. That's a big thing.
But it's I'm sure you know this and you're talking about it right now. It's surprising how loyal people become to your brand so quickly if you put out like a good product and treat them right. With Ren, for example, I would say, 20 out of the 100 of the second model that we released. Look, and they were both dive watches, the same case, different color dial, different color bezel. That's it. 20 out of the 100 were people that had ordered the first watch. And, for a watch that's basically the same watch, I like to think they're different enough to wear differently, cool, but you really see that loyalty and building that customer friend base of people that are really supporters of your brand. And you're obviously seeing that as
well. For sure. No, and I also believe that they not just buy, as I was saying, into the brand, into the design, into the watch, but they buy into the person.
Yeah.
So that's something that also a lot of people want. They want personality out of the brand. They want the personality out of the face of the brand, which I believe that we have because of political correctness or just being very transactional. A lot of brands have forgot a little bit about that. There's some people that might not like me because I'm very blunt, and I tell them first dead that I see you with one of my watches on. I literally said that to someone on their face. And there are some people that they're on my never buy list. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be related to this person with my brand. And I say with this negative connotation because it's the strongest one, but there's also a positive connotation. Who do I wish that I see my watch being on the wrist wearing, because I believe in personality. I believe in what these people are, giving to the world. And I want to be either not or involving to that.
Cool. I have a few random questions that pop in my head. First, bracelets. Are there any bracelets you guys are conceptualizing? Because the way you designed this case has a more integrated look. Like the lugs aren't like traditional lugs where there's a gap in between, at least visible on top. Makes me think of something that would look really nice if it fit underneath. So I was just wondering, what can you share with us about?
Yeah. Funny you mentioned, a lot of people have pointed that out. And yeah, there's a lot of that in the design, the initial design. One thing that surprised me is developing a brand new bracelet is more complicated than developing a watch.
Wow.
It is insane how difficult it is, right? But yeah, we decided after launching MEC One and starting delivery and doing the hard part of the MEC One to be done with, to develop a full in-house bracelet, which we are already R&D.
In-house bracelet too.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. We're R&D in that bracelet right now, because I didn't want it to just offer something that is off the shelf. Some brands do, totally fine with that. But I wanted to have something. If we already went all the way to do a watch that doesn't look like anything else, let's do also something that is very unique for the brand on the bracelet side and on this clasp and all these little things that we have talked about. Hopefully, we're working on doing micro adjustments. It's not a full-fledged sports watch, but those type of things matter, especially for me, because I apply everything that people might want into the watch. I apply for myself. What is it that I'm looking for? So I get bloated when I walk a lot. And then I need a little bit more room, so I don't have on the bracelet the little holes to change. So that comes very handy, for example. So yeah, hopefully by the end of the year, you guys are gonna be hearing more news about that, more news about new watches that we're gonna be making. We're gonna be introducing a few new SKUs into the line, so that's gonna be very cool.
Wow. And you were mentioning something about wine, Carlos, as a man of fine taste, you designing your own watches, your brands, you're collecting, and now you're going into wine. What's this whole thing?
I get bored, man.
How many companies do you have?
You aren't busy enough. You have a child. You have enough babies projects you're working on.
I think that I live with FOMO,
FOMO?
Yeah.
Really?
I gotta say, one of the main things that I wanted to do in my life is, once I finalized that career side of professional suit and tie type of thing, I wanted to only dedicate myself to do business in the things that I love, right? So the first thing that I wanted to do was the watch. It was significantly more complicated to do than many other things that I wanted to do, or some of them. And then once I felt that MEC was well on its way to start moving by itself to has momentum, then that was the moment that I said, okay, you know what? I also want to do something with wine. And I also want to present something that is different, that is solving some sort of a issue in the industry. I'm from Venezuela. I'm from Latin America. And I wanted to bring that also with me, because there are many places that you can do fantastic wine. But I went to Argentina. In Argentina, which, is one of my favorite wines. I went to the area. I flew there. I met with a bunch of people. I tried different providers. So it was very similar to my entire journey with MEC, because with MEC, I actually moved to Europe for 6 months, to work on this. In Argentina, it wasn't that long, but one of the things that I wanted to do is, number one, I want to create a wine that tastes more like a, more expensive wine than, the entry level that they have in Argentina. I want the palate to be more similar to wines that you find in Bordeaux in France, for a fraction of the cost. And why is it that a lot of people don't know much about Argentinian wine, right? And I started figuring out these sort of things. And, what we came about was with a wine that is fully organic, biodynamic, and the production is actually quite small.
What does biodynamic mean?
Biodynamic means that you produce the wine, everything on the harvest, it follows the cycles of the moon. So it's a little more esoterical. A lot of people thought that it was like a bunch of hey into this, but they start realizing it does change quite a lot. The palate in the wine, and also the crops will behave a little bit different. Not to get too cookie in the conversation, but yeah, it's very interesting. If you guys have time at home, check it out.
So
And
what's your wine called?
It's called Cuerpo Celeste. So it's a translation of celestial body in Spanish.
Oh,
I
Right.
that celestial body.
Can you buy it yet, or
Very soon, very soon. So it's going to, hopefully it's going to be available in the US in May.
will you send us a bottle? And we'll
Absolutely.
drink
Just
it
like-
on the
I want
on the podcast.
when you go to a restaurant to be. Do you want more full body, light body? Like I want celestial body.
There you go.
That's such a sick.
It better be
Right.
biodynamic.
And then here, I'm
Organic.
gonna pitch an idea too. The MEC 3 watch is gonna be a moon phase watch with jump hour.
And you give
And
a
you get a
bottle.
free bottle of wine.
Yes, yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, the celestial
Sort of
edition.
top up ahead
Yeah.
of everything that I'm
You
doing.
get a bottle of wine every month for the amount of months you have the watch.
I'm gonna invite you guys to see the launch of MEC 2 because it has something to do with this.
Okay. At least you're not doing a tequila.
No,
There's-
no.
I feel like everyone's.
Everyone is. I mean, as soon
Tequila.
as you see The Rock launching his tequila, it's like, nah,
Like-
dude,
I
I'm
feel
okay.
I feel like as all of us age, wine is the only acceptable alcohol that you can drink like at any time of the day and not be considered like an alcoholic. You're
yeah,
very tasteful because you're drinking wine at 8 a.m.
Yeah, they don't know that you're a functional
You're drinking wine at 8 a.m. with it.
Like, I'm testing out the new batch.
I smell it every single time we show up. in this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
I come in here. That's why it takes us so long to set up. I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah,
You have to
disoriented.
do it
Yeah,
very
no,
slowly.
it's socially acceptable for you to grab a glass of wine for lunch or dinner
Yeah.
in any day of the week, right?
Yeah.
But the good thing about this is number one, obviously same thing that I did with the watch. I did it on something that I personally like to drink. But also because it's organic, it means that it won't hit you as hard for the lack of
You won't get
sulfites
you won't get
with a headache next day, right? It won't get you. The other thing that is very interesting for the Asian community, people don't get the Asian flush. And one of the first
Really?
people that told me that is my wife. My wife is Chinese. She's from Hong Kong. And immediately when she tried the wine, she's like, I'm perfectly fine.
I'm not red. Yeah.
Yeah, bring more.
Yeah.
So I developed 5 different wines, if you will, 3 different reds, one white Sauvignon Blanc, and I have an orange wine, which is pretty cool.
Orange wine.
Yeah, you haven't heard of orange wine?
No, I've had
Oh,
orange
yeah.
wine.
Yeah.
I went to.
I was thought you were gonna say like a rosé or something.
I
Yeah.
like rosé too. Yeah.
No, I decided to go orange, for the reason, right now the market is really looking for it. It's a more artisanal way to do that type of wine, but also is because it's 100% from a grape that is autochthonous, is unique to Argentina, which is Torrontés. So it's 100% from a grape that is only from Argentina. And when I was doing the tastings, it has been one of the most requested
Wow.
bottles, and that's our initial price point. So it's going to be very cool. As soon as we have the whole presentation, I'll send you guys a case.
Yeah, I don't know why
wow.
you manage all these different
It's crazy.
projects.
Yeah.
I can't even post a video every day.
Yeah. No, the thing I was just thinking of, I remember reading online somewhere that Gen Z, the next generation who can now drink alcohol, their alcohol spending is a lot less than considered to millennials, Gen X, and everyone before. Do you guys see have you guys heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard they're not drinking as much either.
Yeah.
And
And then it's like when I think about what you're doing, it's like you're following your passion. You're not really listening to the data and everything. And I'm sure there will come a time when alcohol sales are going to boom again. And, at that time, you'll have a fully functioning production. You're not waiting for the market to tell you when it's the right time to sell alcohol.
I think like a lot
I
of
think it's cool.
the fact that like, people are working from home. So like you're getting jobs and not even going into an office. So you didn't have like work happy hours.
There's no
things
social
like that.
aspect.
Even like in colleges, like
Yeah.
you were taking classes remotely. You didn't get that like social thing.
Well, the other thing, as a Gen Z, or
Yeah.
half Gen Z, half millennial, you could say, the one thing I've seen, like with my friends, is I have more friends, people I know that are like the sober curious, where they don't drink almost ever. I have one friend that went completely sober. Not because he had a problem. He was just like, I don't want to drink. But then I've also seen of my friends, including myself, instead of drinking 5 nights a week and buying Bud Light or buying some, like they'll spend the more money
Yeah.
on the better alcohol.
Like whiskeys and stuff.
Yeah, like my cousins, for example, they're like 29, 30, so they're a little bit older than me, but they're super into natural wines, organic wines. For like years now, they haven't been drinking. That's a lot of my friends have gotten to really nice whiskey, and spending $150 on a bottle of whiskey instead of spending $25 and drinking it every day.
But that's what I did. Like when I was your age, I started getting into whiskeys and like spending more money.
It also could be the fact that I'm getting older on the
But I think the fact that you hang out with a bunch of millennials and
that's also
all the events are full of millennials and even older.
Like one of my questions was like, I want to get into like my dad's sort of into wine, but not really, he'll buy a case once every 5 years, he'll buy a case. But I'm curious, like for somebody that wants to get into wine, because a lot of people here probably are curious about that or listening, how would you recommend somebody do that?
That's a good question. I will give you an answer that it has served me for any kind of hobby. We're talking about watch collecting. We're talking about car collecting. We're talking about, in this case, wine. Start with the things that are close to you and start realizing what it is that you like in your own life, right? And initially you can go for, if you have a budget of $12 for a bottle, just push yourself into going for 16. The difference in the market, knowing what is it that you're going to go for between 12 to 16 is huge. And then you're going to start realizing that if you jump from $16 to $24, then to $30, the difference between them start making a lot of sense. But same thing that I was telling you guys about my journey, collecting watches, you wouldn't know until you have tried that initial, price point, right?
Right.
That number one. Number two, don't be scared of trying new things. A lot of people want to go for the safe route, which is I'm going to have French wine. I'm going to have Italian wine. Maximum, they're going to go for Napa Valley, right? Try new things. Even here in the States, we have amazing wine from Oregon State. We have amazing wine right now in the Fingerlings in New York. We have, which they do amazing Riesling, by the way. If you want to try German wine, right, is booming right now. If you want to try things a little bit more wacky, like China is making amazing wine, let me tell you.
Wow.
They have won
for
3-4 years in a row, international tasting.
Now my TikTok is going to be all Chinese wine.
And they sell for quite a good amount of money, Japanese wine. So when you start realizing that the expression of each variant of these watches, depending on their location, really gives you a different type of appreciation, even in typical localities, like for example, Italy. I always recommend people, I know that you love your Tuscan, your super Tuscan. You want to try something completely different and doesn't break the bank. Go see, go to a Nero d'Avola, go to, which these two are my absolute favorite. If you go to a Bianco, or Nero, which is the two best wines in Sicily for the Mount Etna, so Etna Rosso, Etna Bianco, you're gonna be paying a fraction for the experience that you're getting for that wine than a French wine or a higher echelon Italian wine. So just try new things, go for localities that people don't know much about. And nowadays, this is like the best way to get to know things, because a lot of people have, content, same as you guys, that you have content about watch, and a lot of people will learn a lot about watches and the watch collecting world through this content. A lot of people doing the same thing with wine. So once you start putting yourself out there and you are not afraid to, I saw this wine, let me go to the store, let me try it, and you have some comparison, the knowledge will come.
Interesting.
So have you ever seen the show? It's not on anymore, called Adam Ruins Everything.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah,
Adam Conover. No. He basically does a segment on any different industry and ruins it, like how awful it is and how so he did one on the wine industry, and one of the things that he found was not only could, when they blind tested 50 of the top sommeliers in the world, not only could they not tell the difference when they made white wine and red wine both cold, the difference between white wine and red wine, they couldn't tell which was white, which was red.
Oh, wow.
For sommeliers. Oh, when
Yeah.
it was cold.
When it was cold, when both were cold.
So drinking it at cold temperature.
Yeah, they couldn't tell the difference between, they like put like food coloring or whatever. They also, a lot of times between expensive, couldn't tell if they put cheap wine in expensive, bottles and couldn't tell the difference. So, I mean, I think maybe when you're getting down to like $10, $12, it's watered down and things like that. But to me, like good wine, I feel like you can have good wine probably at many different price points.
Absolutely. Of course.
Just because a wine is $200 a bottle doesn't necessarily make it, just better than
that's true.
$25 bottle.
I mean, we see that everywhere, right?
Yeah.
If you take that into watches, we all know that too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that, for example, if you want to try something on that lower price point of, let's say on the 10s, 15, etc., gold Portuguese.
Yeah.
That's an
Port
amazing
wine.
solution.
Yeah.
Not even that. If you go for a Duro, for example, that's going to be fantastic. If you go to Spanish wine, Galicia, and Albarino, that's going to be absolutely killer at that level of price point. The problem becomes when you start going for the brand.
Yeah.
If you go for a Chateau Margaux, Chateau Lafite, if you go for a Rothschild, if you go for these type of wines, DRC, that now everyone is like, a big knowledge, fountain of wine, and they want to drop name, some producers. That's a 3,000 bottle wine. And it is, will it change your life? Probably not.
Right.
Change my wallet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
At least a watch you can have forever, right? Like,
You can keep the bottle.
That's
Yeah.
the weird thing. Why it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Once you get to that point of expenditure, you need to also have been in the game for a very long time in order to appreciate it, because it's the same thing as, you getting, high complication from, let's say, a Tech, or a high complication from Rolex, like these two behemoths in the market. But if you go for even a grand complication from Miller, that I consider that is, he was named like the king of complications, right? That's a watch that if you're just starting and putting it on, you're not going to be able to appreciate how difficult it is, the level of craftsmanship, the level of architecture to the movement. So it happens the same with wine. You're not going to be able to appreciate it, but at that point, you need all the baggage and all the information and knowledge that it comes before in order to get to that point. So it's not necessary.
Yeah. I love all the advice you gave there. Very sound, very logical, and
it's the first time we've talked about like non-watch stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean, no, this was awesome to like dive into what you're doing with MEC Watches, your own personal endeavors through collecting, that kind of thing, and now going into wine. So, yeah, this has been a really fun episode to talk about.
Wine Enthusiast Radio.
Yeah.
I think Wine Enthusiast is already like a big mag.
I'm sure there's
Sorry, please don't see it.
Well, the thing with wine too, the last thing I'll say is that like, I can't imagine when you're mentioning that people are learning about wine online, like the experience of learning about watches online is different because you can have video and photo.
Yeah.
You have a visual experience. You can see what it looks like and you can make an opinion. But I can't look at a bottle of wine and understand until you taste it or smell it. You have to use your other senses to.
There's a lot more trust if like involved with someone telling you what wine. I use this app called Vivino.
Yeah.
Where you take like a photo of it and it gives you like all the people's ratings, like out of 5, and like if it's dry versus whatever.
Imagine if that was for watches too. Like, and it's like 3 out of 10. Like, oh shit. I was kidding.
Good.
But what's it called? Gary V. Gary Vaynerchuk. He did Wine Library, and like I went down his rabbit hole. That sounds so wrong. I went down the rabbit hole of his YouTube channel, and I saw that he would like do videos about Wine Library, his his father's company.
From a town right next to me, by the way.
Yeah, in Jersey.
I grew up. Yeah.
And he was like, the way he would describe it, he would be like, I remember there's one where he's like, this kind of tastes like a golf ball. And like people would tune in just to watch him and just like, maybe they'll buy the same wine and be like, yeah, that really does. And I think the way he described it was much more approachable. It wasn't like, you need to taste the blackberry stuff. He was just like,
the tannins. It's like,
he's like,
who knows what a tannin is?
I have no idea.
What is that?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like fragrance.
I think the job of the sommelier is pretty cool. But Carlos, thank you so much for coming on to our episode of Wrist Enthusiast Radio. If there's one last thing you want to leave for the audience, this camera or that camera. You can tell them one last thing.
Or you
Very
can
nice.
bend around.
Really.
Well, I mean, thank you guys. It was very fun to have this conversation. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can, repeat that in the future with new watches and whatnot, and sharing some wine. But, I think that the very last thing that I wanted to leave you guys over there watching the video is, go for what you really like. Don't take same out of the conversation of the wine that we were having. You're going to have a lot of noise and a lot of people telling you this is better than this, or why you should get this brand versus this other brand, or this complication or this complication. Go for what you really like, and don't feel bad because some people think that whatever watch or brand that you're wearing is less than some other. There's always going to be, a big daddy out there that is going to have a better, bigger, more badass watch that you have. So don't really get into that mentality. It's not a competition. This is supposed to be a hobby to enjoy, to be, it's an expression of yourself. You know a lot about a person depending on the watch that they're wearing. And that tells you a lot. So just go for what you really like. And if what you like is something, very, unique and very exclusive, and you have the capital, send us an email and you guys can check out a MEC in person.
MECWatches.com. Is it
We will
right?
put
MECWatches.com.
we'll put the website in the comments, or in the caption. Sorry. We'll also, if your wine has a website, we'll throw that in there as well. We're going to be doing an episode soon from Geneva, from Watches and Wonders. So we're going to try and get that out quickly. So depending on when this comes out, just wanted to give everyone a heads up for that. But Carlos, thank you so much for coming on.
Guys.
It's been a pleasure. Very interesting. You're a very interesting guy with some very interesting projects going on. So we're looking forward to seeing how everything progresses.
Let's do that.
And I'm sure that we'll have some updates in the future.
That's good. Thank you, guys.
Until next time, guys.
Would you rather have the Tudor pink or the Tudor flamingo blue?
I think that I go for the pink. I'm from Miami, so it kind of makes sense for me.
Yep.
Yeah, but you'll buy.
Absolutely. Yeah, baby.
Before you asked me this question, I was going with the blue, and then when I had them side by side, I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna go for the pink too, because I like how it's a little more subtle than the blue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go against everyone else and say the flamingo blue. It's kind of has that aqua vibe. I like the Ren that we produced has the aqua. It's a similar color. I'm not much of a pink guy, so the flamingo blue.
I originally thought the flamingo blue when it came out. I was like, oh, I want that. But now that I have them in person, first time seeing both of them, I'm gonna go with the pink. But that's me. What do you guys want? Let me know in the comments, or let us know in the comments.